Ethan was 33 when he first met Kristen. First, he felt sorry for her. She was a delicate, fragile girl who looked unwell, and he was drawn to her out of a desire to help. But as they spent more time talking and texting, he realized that what he felt wasn't just pity. It was love. Ethan, a man of the military, was often away, so their connection was mostly through social media. Kristen, who worked as a social worker caring for the elderly, and Ethan would catch up almost every evening via video calls, sharing little bits of their day, thoughts, and sometimes playful moments. "I'll come kiss you soon," Ethan promised. One evening, having not seen Kristen in 3 months, he missed her terribly. "I can't wait," she smiled, and that smile lit up Ethan's heart. When Ethan finally arrived, his love for her was overwhelming, and he knew he wanted to marry her. He made plans to surprise Kristen with a lovely dinner at his home. At the end of the evening, with the soft glow of candlelight around them, he slipped a ring onto her finger without a second's hesitation. She said yes so quickly it almost felt like she agreed before the ring was fully out of his pocket. They had a small, humble wedding, and then Ethan moved his new wife into his apartment. However, soon after, he had to leave again for work. Kristen, now alone, found herself yearning for his physical presence. The phone calls and online chats weren't enough to fill the void. One day, a friend invited her to a social game, promising a fun night and good company. Kristen was happy to join. When she arrived, she met the rest of the team, 3 other girls and 5 guys, all of whom had attended university together and shared a close bond. Kristen enjoyed the game, and after that night, she asked her friend to invite her more often. It became her little escape. But as soon as Ethan returned home, Kristen stopped going to the games. Her friends understood this, knowing that she would return as soon as Ethan left again, and she came back on the night of their first return after the break. The team won. To celebrate, they all went to a cafe and stayed there until closing time. By the time they left, the group had been drinking for several hours. Kristen, slightly tipsy, discovered that one of the guys, Brandon, was following her. He had been flirting with her for a while, but that night, he was bolder than ever and kissed her. Alcohol worked its magic, and before Kristen knew it, she invited Brandon into her empty apartment. They woke up together the next morning. From then on, Brandon made several more visits to Kristen's place, turning her lonely evenings into something a little more thrilling. Ethan began to notice small bruises on Kristen's body, and during one intimate moment, he asked her where they came from. Kristen, looking uncertain, said they were from a dance class she'd taken with a friend. Ethan, still trusting her, let it slide, and they never revisited the topic. But Kristen's secret didn't stop with Brandon. She became involved with 2 other guys from her game team, inviting them to her house as well. One day, a neighbor stopped her in the hallway and threatened to tell Ethan everything. For a short while, Kristen stopped seeing the 3 men. But when summer came and the neighbor moved to the country, she returned to her old ways. She shared this with her friend, who just shook her head, calling Kristen cruel names and mocking her actions. That was the last conversation they had, and Kristen stopped attending the games. When Ethan returned home, he began noticing the increasingly disapproving looks from his neighbors. A young couple who had recently had a baby and lived directly above him in Kristen's apartment approached him with complaints. Apparently, their intimacy was so loud and passionate that the neighbors could hear the moans through the walls, even when Ethan wasn't home. "What's this about the neighbors complaining about noise?" Ethan asked that evening, his tone sharp. Kristen, clearly embarrassed, tried to explain herself. She stammered, saying that sometimes when Ethan was away, she watched videos of an interesting nature to relieve some of the tension and keep herself entertained while waiting for him to come back from his trips. Ethan, though confused by the explanation, chose to believe her. He convinced himself that what she said made sense. The autumn air was crisp, and the leaves painted the city streets in shades of red and gold. Ethan spent his last few days on business, eagerly anticipating the vacation he had planned for them, a surprise trip to the sea. Staying in a luxurious hotel, he couldn't wait to see Kristen's reaction when he came home. However, when he got out of the taxi near his house, he felt that something was wrong. He ran into Gregory, a neighbor who had previously warned Kristen about her behavior. Gregory was serious, and he didn't greet her in his usual friendly way. Instead, he greeted Ethan stiffly and asked if he could talk to him. After giving a brief account of their lives and families, Gregory said something that made Ethan's stomach turn. "You know, your wife doesn't waste her time. Men, go to her." I counted 3. Ethan froze. His heart skipped a beat and his pulse quickened. He felt a cold sweat break out on his back. He stared at Gregory, not understanding whether he was joking or saying some incredible absurdity. But the old man's serious look left no room for doubt. The words hung in the air, and Ethan's mind raced. He managed to thank his neighbor, who shouted after him to behave like a man before leaving. Ethan stood there, and his world spun as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The bruises on Kristen's body, the moans that the neighbors complained about, everything began to make sense. It was all there, right in front of him. The truth was so obvious, but Ethan either ignored it or just didn't want to see it. Kristen should have been home by now. Ethan called her from the train station, hoping to hear her voice. She greeted him with a bright smile and a warm hug, but when she saw the tension in his eyes, her smile faltered, and she asked softly, "What happened?" Ethan fixed his gaze on her, not blinking. In that moment, it was as if a veil had been lifted, and the vision of the woman he had loved now seemed foreign. She looked like the same Kristen, but there was something unsettling about her presence. The sweet scent he once adored now felt strange, alien, as if it didn't belong to her. "I saw Gregory," Ethan said in a flat but cold voice. He noticed Kristen stagger slightly, her hand instinctively reaching for the door jamb, as if the mention of his name had caught her off guard. Ethan's voice was steady but cold as he spoke. "He told me something interesting today." The color drained from Kristen's face as she realized what he was referring to. Her body trembled, and without saying a word, she collapsed onto the floor, her hands flying to her face as tears began to spill from her eyes. She didn't try to deny it. Instead, she finally told him everything, every detail without holding anything back. Ethan sat motionless on a stool in the hallway, listening to her confession, his face unreadable. "I'll sell the apartment," Ethan suddenly declared, his voice firm. "I can't stay here anymore. It's disgusting." Those words hit Kristen like a physical blow, and her sobs grew even more desperate. She begged for his forgiveness, but Ethan just shook his head. He had never believed in the empty promises of sorry. The next day, he listed the apartment for sale, deliberately lowering the price to sell it quickly. The deal went through fast, and before long, he was wrapping up his divorce and moving out. His vacation was consumed by the paperwork and the transition. Kristen, now alone, had no choice but to return to her mother's small town. She couldn't even afford to rent a place of her own. Her mother, in shock, cried for days. Brandon, one of the men Kristen dated, confessed to her that he and the guys were just betting on who could seduce her. Kristen was horrified by this revelation. She sincerely believed that the men cared about her, that their relationship was real and not just a game for them. The truth struck a chord with her. Humiliation and regret filled her when she realized how naive she had been. For a long time, Kristen cried, replaying everything in her mind. She no longer spoke to the group of men, severing all ties. The time for reflection was overwhelming, and she spent her days trying to find work, anything to escape her mother's house. But late at night, when the world fell quiet, Kristen had ample time to reflect on the destruction her own actions had caused. The betrayal she had committed not only shattered her marriage but had turned her life upside down, leaving her to face the consequences alone. So guys, if you all liked today's story, please like the video and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon. Thank you for watching.